Abraham sat at his desk across from the astonished Dr. Rosenberg. He allowed him to have the comfortable chair and had fetched him some hot tea. "Avi, I must apologize." Rosenberg blew over his tea to cool it. "I never suspected that something like this was possible." "I told you, didn't I? I told you that Leo was a fantastic creation. Just think of the possibilities." "Believe me, I am." "Just think of it. No more war, no more poverty, no more sickness." Rosenberg raised his head. "No more sickness?" Yes. There are many things that I have not told you yet. Leopold will never grow old. He is immune to human viruses. He will never die." "But he can be killed, yes?" "I suppose. Why would you even think of such a thing?" "Abraham, I must remind you that many things Leopold said were disloyal and even treasonous to the state. Germany instigated the war. I have no leader. He must be educated. He obviously does not know what's happening outside the confines of your lab." "Doctor," Abraham looked him in the eye, "Leo has had complete access to the wireless. He has listened to recordings of Der Fuhrer's speeches. He has read all of the news reports." "Read them? He has no eyes." "Listened to them, then. I have read them to him. I have been teaching him about history and culture, art and music. He's very well educated." "And yet he speaks as if Germany is responsible for this war. He does not understand that Herr Hitler is merely trying to build a master race." "On the contrary, Herr Doctor, Leo believes that he is the master race. And I believe that he's correct in his assessment of the matter. That is the purpose of my experiments, is it not? To build a master race?" "Not a race of those things." Rosenberg sprung out of his chair. "You are supposed to build a better soldier. How can he be a soldier when he cannot leave the confines of this lab? How can he be a soldier if he believes that he has no leader?" Abraham averted his eyes. "He can leave the lab," he muttered. "What?" whispered Rosenberg, sitting back down and gripping the arms of the chair. "How?" "There are ways." Abraham shook his head and took a deep breath, then renewed his lively demeanor. "Do not concern yourself with that now. There's so much that you need to learn. I need more staff. I need more money. Is this enough to convince you? Can you persuade the Nazis to give me more time now?" Rosenberg leaned back in his chair. "No." "What?" cried Abraham. "Your time has run out, Avi. Obviously, we will be taking over the project." "We?" "The Gestapo, the Kripo, Der Fuhrer's private staff. I'm certain that they will all appreciate your efforts, and you will be rewarded. They will need your continuing assistance, of course, but it's no longer your project. Leopold will become property of the state." "But he's my son." "Enough of that nonsense. He's a monster. Fascinating, intelligent, wonderful, but still not human. He will have his uses, though." "Uses?" "The Reichskanzler's scientists will find a way to use him to aid the war effort. Or perhaps in the eradication of the unfit, the homosexuals, the gypsies, and the Jews. Oh, I'm sorry, Avi. I refer to the useless Jews. You, of course, are different." "That's completely unacceptable," cried Abraham. "I will not stand for it. You nor anyone else is taking Leo from me. It will be difficult without funding or a lab, but I will find another way. I will take Leo and leave. I refuse to have him exploited like that. He's worth far more than a soldier or a virus, or a tumor, as you first called him." Rosenberg shook his head slowly from side to side. "Avi, my dear Avi," he said, as if talking to a child, "no one can ever leave here. You know why." "What do you mean?" "The prisoners, you, your family, and now, since I know what's been going on here, even I will never be allowed to leave this place. Even discounting your work with Leopold, how many of the prisoners have you experimented on?" "I don't know, but it was in the name of science. Look at what their sacrifice has given us. It does not matter, Avi. If Germany should lose the war, and they will not, but just for the sake of imagination, we would all be tried for war crimes for what we've done. It does not matter whether or not our intentions were good. In addition, when Germany wins the war, there will still be those who will not understand. They will say that we've committed crimes against fellow humans. You understand that, don't you? I suppose, but there are no buts, Abraham. We finish our work, we make ourselves as useful as possible, and we just may live to see our children grow up. Abraham stood silent for a moment. He was shaking, not knowing if it was from fear or anger. No, I will not stand for it. I would sooner destroy Leopold and my entire lab before I give him over to the Nazis. Abraham, you don't know what you're saying. I know very well, Herr Doctor, he spat. The Gestapo could take me if they wish, but no one will take Leo. I'll kill him. Take that to your Nazi friends. Dr. Rosenberg did not utter another word. He simply turned his back and walked out of the office, not even bothering to shut the door on his way out. Abraham sat down at his desk and held his head in his hands. What would happen now? Adjacent to the office, in the dimly lit laboratory, Leo shifted his massive body in the tank. He was also shaking, or at least as close to it as he could come. His tinny voice could barely be heard emanating from the speaker. It almost sounded like he was crying, if such a thing were possible. You would kill me, Father? Several uneventful days passed. Abraham began to think that perhaps Rosenberg's threats were baseless. He continued his work with Leo, which mostly consisted of educating him. Abraham occasionally took biopsies and samples of the fluid that Leo floated in, nothing out of the ordinary. However, he noticed that Leo had become withdrawn. He answered Abraham's questions abruptly and concisely, when he'd always been a bit of a chatterbox before. Is something wrong, Leo? No. I believe that there is, said Abraham as he pulled a chair over in front of Leo's tank and straddled it backwards. You are concerned over what Dr. Rosenberg was saying, aren't you? No, Father. I think yes. Well, you have nothing to be worried about, Leo. I will never give you over to those animals. I feel the same way about them that you do, but we must learn not to express those feelings so freely. You would have me lie? No. Well, yes, but a lie of omission. Try to avoid talk of politics and war. Leo was quiet for a bit and then shifted in his tank. But they want to make me a soldier. They want me to kill, don't they? They do. Abraham pressed his lips together. But we will convince them otherwise. We will show them that you have far more to offer them, to offer the entire human race. Abraham rose from his chair and pushed it back against the wall. Then, as an afterthought, he turned back toward Leo's tank. You can put your mind at ease, Leo. Dr. Rosenberg has probably forgotten all about us. Suddenly, it was as if the fates, the white-robed incarnations of destiny, had been awaiting his statement. There was a knock at the laboratory door, and then the person behind it opened the door without even awaiting a reply. It was Haltenbrunner, a captain of the local criminal Polizei, or Kripo for short. He had 2 officers with him, who waited outside the door as he entered. Hauptmann Haltenbrunner, to what do I owe the pleasure of your visit? Abraham realized that he had forgotten the customary greeting. Heil Hitler! Haltenbrunner raised his hand absent-mindedly. Heil. Again, I ask, what can I do for you, Herr Hauptmann? At first, Haltenbrunner ignored Abraham and strolled around the lab, running his gloved finger through the dust that had accumulated on some of the unused equipment. Then he released a heavy sigh. There's been an accident, he said without emotion. Your wife. I'm sorry to inform you that she is dead. Abraham's stomach dropped. He began to shake and stumbled for the chair. Almost missing it, he dropped into the seat and put his head between his knees. He took several deep breaths, but began to retch anyway. When he had recovered a bit, he finally asked, What happened to her? It appears that she was on her way to Dresden and came across a checkpoint near Wolkow. She did not stop. Perhaps she was distracted. The guards could do nothing except assume that she was attempting to break through the checkpoint. There was a short chase, and she was shot. Quite a shame, if you asked me. What was she doing on the road to Dresden? We have no family there. Perhaps she was visiting the market. No, she goes to the market in Hohenbach. It's only a short distance away. There was a long, awkward period of silence. Abraham continued to look at the floor, and Haltenbrunner simply stared at him, waiting. Do you doubt what I say, Dr. Strauss? No, Herr Hauptmann, replied Abraham. No, of course not. Haltenbrunner showed an absolute lack of emotion. Nevertheless, we'll need you to come with us to collect her body. Abraham stood, unable to speak, and waited for the two officers to enter the room and guide him away. Almost as an afterthought, but obviously coolly calculated, Haltenbrunner added, It's times such as this, Herr Doctor, that make a man wonder if it's worth putting his work ahead of his family. Abraham could detect a bit of a smile on the captain's face. At least you still have your children. 2 days went by, and Abraham had not returned to the lab. Leo did not become worried. He had access to all of the nourishment that he needed, both nutritionally and intellectually. He understood what had happened, and he understood that Dr. Strauss needed time to grieve. Leo himself did not see the point of it, but he appreciated the fact that humans were different, emotionally fragile creatures. It was late in the evening when the lab door clicked open. Leo's heart, if one could call it that, leapt for a split second at the thought that it might be Abraham returning, but he instantly realized that it was, in fact, Dr. Rosenberg. He knew that emotions were useless, yet he became anxious upon seeing Rosenberg in the lab. "Good evening, Herr Doctor," said Leo. "It's a pleasure to see you again. I'm afraid that Dr. Strauss is not in the lab today. He has experienced a loss recently and apparently needs some time to recover." "Good evening to you, Leopold," began Rosenberg. "I am aware of the death of Abraham's wife. I have already paid my respects and given my condolences. However, it's not Dr. Strauss that I've come to speak with. It's you."